Welcome back to Sleepless Mysteries. On July 1st, 2025, astronomers gave a name to a silent visitor crossing our skies, 3I Atlas, an interstellar comet, the third ever recorded, drifting in from the void beyond the sun. Its chemistry is alien, its movements unpredictable, its presence unsettling. To science, it is a chance to glimpse matter from another star, but to many, it feels like something more, a fulfillment of prophecies whispered in distant ages, written in places far removed from one another, and yet strangely united by a single vision, fire in the sky, a visitor from the beyond. Long before telescopes mapped orbits, seers and shamans spoke of wanderers that crossed heaven. In Babylonian texts, comets were torches of the gods, heralding upheaval. In Mayan codices, bright streaks in the night foretold the shifting of kings. In China, ancient astronomers carved careful records of broom stars whose tails swept across the heavens, each tied to dynastic fate. Even in Norse sagas, fire trails in the sky signaled the coming of Ragnarok. These cultures had no contact with one another, and yet their voices repeat the same refrain: a traveler appears, and with it, the world changes. Could 3I Atlas be what they foresaw? Not the comet itself, perhaps, but the idea, the pattern of cosmic arrivals that leave no land untouched. If Oumuamua in 2017 was the first scout, if Borisov in 2019 was the second, then Atlas is the third. To ancient minds, 3 was never just a number. It was completion, fulfillment, the sealing of a cycle. Did some remote prophecy, carved in stone or ink, attempt to warn us that such a cycle would return? Consider this. Atlas's strange green glow, its alien chemistry, its unpredictable orbit, all elements that resist simple explanation. Ancient stories describe comets not merely as rocks or ice, but as beings, fiery messengers, divine omens, sometimes even celestial ships. The Dogon of West Africa spoke of star knowledge they claimed was given to them long before telescopes confirmed their accuracy. The Hopi in North America told of blue star Kachina, a sign in the heavens that would mark great change. Could it be that the comet we see today echoes those prophecies, carrying with it the same air of inevitability? You don't need to believe in prophecy to feel its weight. Just let these words guide you. Close your eyes if you wish. Imagine standing on an ancient plain thousands of years ago, staring up at a night sky unpolluted by modern light. A comet blazes above, its tail long and spectral, priests chant, kings worry. Ordinary people whisper that the world is shifting. Now open your eyes to today and see that another has come, foreign, interstellar, older than any story yet written into our skies again. Before we begin, if you haven't already, subscribe to Sleepless Mysteries so these quiet journeys into the unknown will always find you. Tap the like button if stories like this bring you wonder. And if you're still awake, share in the comments where in the world you are listening from and what time it is right now. Now, let the noise of the present fade. Across cultures, across centuries, voices spoke of travelers in the sky. Tonight, we ask, were they warning us? Were they waiting for 3I Atlas? This is 3I Atlas, remote prophecies that saw its arrival, unsolved mysteries for sleep, and it begins now. Ancient stargazers. Long before telescopes pierced the heavens, human beings raised their eyes to the night sky and saw not only patterns of light, but stories written in the movements of the stars. The Babylonians, perhaps more than any ancient culture, were meticulous in their celestial observations. Clay tablets from Mesopotamia reveal that they tracked comets, eclipses, and planetary conjunctions with obsessive detail. To them, the skies were not silent. They were the voice of the gods, speaking through fire and shadow. Among their records, whispers exist of a wandering star, one that moved differently than the rest, an interloper that came from outside the ordered paths of heaven. The descriptions are fragmentary: an elongated glow, a light that refused to obey familiar cycles, but the sense of awe is unmistakable. These early stargazers believed they had glimpsed something beyond the ordinary, a visitor that crossed not just the skies, but the boundaries of the known universe. The Mayans, on the opposite side of the world, crafted codices filled with glyphs and diagrams of celestial phenomena. Their long count calendar has often been misinterpreted as predicting apocalyptic events, but in truth, it was a system to chart cycles of cosmic return. Within their lore lies the tale of a star serpent, a luminous being that descended from the dark river of the Milky Way, trailing fragments in its wake. The Maya were not merely astronomers, they were philosophers of time, and to them the appearance of such a serpent was not random. It was a marker of transition, a herald of great change. Some scholars suggest these passages may describe comets like Halley or Encke, but the elongated form and the strange trajectory described echo something far rarer. Could these ancient stargazers have recorded an interstellar object, one like 3I Atlas, long before we had the tools to track it? Ancient Chinese texts also speak of guest stars, sudden intrusions of light in the heavens. The astronomers of the Han Dynasty carefully distinguished between comets, meteors, and supernovae, but one description stands apart. It speaks of a heavenly broom, glowing green, that swept across the sky without fading, as if it carried its own eternal fire. Unlike ordinary comets that grew dim after weeks, this apparition lingered unnaturally, drifting across constellations in a way that perplexed even the most skilled skywatchers. To them, its presence was ominous, a celestial envoy whose meaning could not be ignored. Was this another glimpse of the same wandering body, observed across centuries and continents, always tied to a sense of upheaval? Egypt too preserved star lore, though often couched in religious imagery. Within the ceilings of temples at Dendera and Thebes are carvings of celestial boats, elongated forms carrying divine passengers across the firmament. While many interpret these as symbolic journeys of gods, others suggest they may encode actual astronomical sightings. Among them, a recurring motif of a narrow, flame-like star appears, often associated with the god Osiris, who represented death, rebirth, and cosmic renewal. The Egyptians believed that when unusual stars crossed their skies, they were witnessing the arrival of messengers from the Duat, the unseen realm beyond. To them, such events were not accidents of nature, but signs woven into destiny. In Greece, philosophers like Aristotle and Pythagoras debated the nature of comets, calling them omens or temporary stars. But in the writings of Plutarch and Pliny, there are passages describing stars that appeared without warning, glowing with strange colors, sometimes splitting into fragments. One particularly haunting account describes a torch in the heavens that seemed to descend toward the region of Mars, burning with an emerald hue. Though couched in metaphor, the resonance with modern observations of 3I Atlas, its peculiar green glow as it outgassed exotic molecules, is difficult to dismiss. Could these ancient minds have seen the same phenomena? Their words, the only surviving traces of encounters we thought were new. Even in the traditions of the Pacific navigators, who charted the seas by stars, there are stories of lights that did not belong. Polynesian chants describe a stranger star that traveled outside the known constellations, one that their priests watched with unease. To voyagers who depended on celestial order to find their way across vast oceans, a wandering body was not merely curious, it was dangerous, a disruption of cosmic navigation. These oral histories, preserved in rhythm and song, echo with the same imagery, a luminous intruder, long, greenish, and accompanied by fragments. If we connect these threads, the clay tablets of Babylon, the codices of the Maya, the scrolls of China, the carvings of Egypt, the writings of Greece, and the chants of the Pacific, we find a chorus of testimonies. Across thousands of years and thousands of miles, humans recorded encounters with strange bodies that arrived from beyond. Each culture used its own language and symbols, yet the imagery converges: elongated forms, unnatural light, trajectories that defied the expected. These were not random meteors or familiar comets. They were visitors, noticed precisely because they broke the rhythm of the sky. Skeptics may argue that all these accounts merely reflect comets like Halley, which return regularly and inspire awe with each passage. But Halley's cycle was eventually recognized. It became predictable, part of the cosmic dance. The records of ancient stargazers describe something more elusive, something that did not return on any schedule, that appeared and vanished without pattern. Interstellar objects like 3 Atlas or Oumuamua would fit this description perfectly. Arrivals from beyond, one-time crossings of our system before they vanish forever into the void. What makes this convergence truly haunting is the implication. If our ancestors really witnessed such objects, then 3 Atlas is not the first, nor will it be the last. These bodies may have visited countless times, each passage noted by watchers who lacked our technology, but not our wonder. To them, the skies were alive with meaning, and when the order was broken, prophecy was born. These prophecies spoke not just of stars, but of fate. The Babylonians saw the wandering star as a judgment. The Maya saw the serpent as transformation. The Egyptians saw the flame as a messenger of rebirth. And now, in our own time, we see 3 Atlas approaching Mars, and we too wonder what change it might herald. The ancient stargazers did not leave equations or orbital mechanics. They left myths, symbols, warnings. Yet perhaps in their language of prophecy, they preserved truths that our modern science is only now rediscovering. The stars are not silent. They are storytellers, and sometimes they tell us of visitors from beyond. Would you like me to continue with the vision of the sky serpent next at 1200 words? The vision of the sky serpent. Across the ancient Americas, serpents were more than animals. They were cosmic symbols, embodiments of power that slithered between earth and sky, between the living and the divine. Among the Maya, Aztec, and other Mesoamerican civilizations, the serpent was sacred, often depicted with feathers, wings, or glowing scales. This was no ordinary reptile. It was a bridge between worlds. And within their mythic and prophetic traditions, one vision recurs again and again: the arrival of a sky serpent, a luminous, wandering presence streaking across the heavens. The Maya recorded much of their astronomical and prophetic knowledge in codices, folded books of bark paper painted with glyphs and vibrant imagery. Though only a few survived the fires of conquest, what remains is filled with serpentine imagery linked to the stars. One striking account speaks of a celestial serpent whose body glowed green, stretching across the firmament and shedding fiery fragments as it moved. It was not static like a constellation, nor regular like the returning planets. Instead, it drifted with no cycle, a strange visitor whose sudden appearance was interpreted as both omen and transition. The serpent was not only feared but revered. It was thought to carry divine energy, capable of transforming entire ages of the world. The Aztec had their own version in Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a deity associated with wisdom, renewal, and cosmic cycles. Legends describe his return as heralded by a glowing sign in the sky, a celestial serpent of light. The imagery matches eerily with what we now see in 3-Eye Atlas: an elongated body, faint green luminescence, and the shedding of smaller fragments into space. To the Aztec, such a sign meant upheaval, the end of one sun and the birth of another. Civilizations feared and welcomed these transitions, believing that cosmic visitors brought both destruction and rebirth. Further south, among the Inca, serpents were tied to water, rivers, and celestial pathways. Some stories speak of a great serpent from the sky that came not to Earth, but to hover near other worlds, a reminder that humanity's destiny was woven with the larger cosmos. Their temples, often aligned with the stars, show carvings of sinuous, snake-like figures winding across the heavens. These were not idle decorations, but encoded myths, instructions passed down to remind generations that the universe was alive with signs. Archaeologists and anthropologists have long debated whether these serpent myths are metaphors for comets. After all, a comet's glowing tail resembles the curve of a snake, and its unpredictable appearances fit the role of omens. Yet the detail within many of these stories goes beyond what an ordinary comet could provide. The descriptions emphasize elongation rather than just a fiery tail, strange green glows instead of white fire, and behaviors that suggest an object lingering or breaking apart in ways that defy the familiar. When viewed in this light, the vision of the sky serpent begins to resemble something far rarer: an interstellar body like 3-Eye Atlas, arriving unbidden, trailing luminous fragments, refusing to follow the rules of the known sky. Among the Hopi people of North America, there exists the prophecy of the blue Kachina, a star-like being that would appear in the heavens at the time of great change. Some tellings describe it as serpent-like, a light twisting across the firmament. While often interpreted symbolically, others argue it reflects an actual celestial apparition, one that stunned early sky watchers and embedded itself in oral tradition. If we strip away the cultural metaphors, what remains is a recurring theme: a foreign body, glowing strangely, crossing the heavens and leaving humanity trembling at its message. The symbolism of the serpent itself adds to the mystery. In nearly every culture, serpents are liminal beings. They shed their skin and are reborn, making them symbols of death and renewal. They coil underground yet rise into the light, bridging opposites. To describe a strange star or comet as a serpent was not just poetic, it was deeply symbolic. It meant this apparition was not merely physical, but carried transformation, the same way a snake transforms itself with every shedding. The vision of the sky serpent, then, was not simply about astronomy, it was about destiny. Consider how the Maya tied their serpent prophecies to their calendar. The long count was built on cycles of ages, each marked by cosmic events. The arrival of a sky serpent could mark the end of one age and the dawn of another. In our modern terms, we might say that a body like 3 Atlas drifting near Mars could trigger discussions of planetary change, the potential seeding of life, or the rewriting of history. For them, the serpent did not simply pass, it transformed the order of existence. Even in Old World myths, the serpent in the sky was not unknown. The Norse spoke of Jörmungandr, the world serpent, vast enough to encircle the earth, who would one day rise from the sea and herald Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. Though not explicitly celestial, the idea of a great serpent tied to cosmic upheaval fits the same archetype. In India, celestial serpents known as nagas or dragons were said to dwell among the stars, their movements linked to eclipses and comets. This global resonance suggests something deeper. Human beings everywhere looked up, saw strange luminous phenomena, and consistently clothed them in serpent imagery. But why serpents? Because the serpent embodies motion, sinuous, unpredictable, alive. When an interstellar visitor cuts across the sky, its elongated body and trailing fragments seem to slither through the stars. A comet or asteroid fragmenting near a planet could easily inspire the vision of a serpent shedding parts of itself, glowing, alive with cosmic fire. 3I Atlas, observed to outgas exotic compounds and fragment as it approached Mars, becomes eerily similar to those descriptions preserved in prophecy. To the ancient mind, such an apparition was more than a curiosity. It was a sign that the universe itself was alive and communicating. Prophecies grew not because of superstition, but because such events demanded meaning. If a serpent appeared in the heavens, civilizations asked, what does it foretell? War, famine, rebirth, enlightenment? And in nearly every story, the answer was the same. It foretold change. As modern observers, we approach with instruments and mathematics, not prophecy. We chart the orbit, measure the light curve, analyze the spectrum. Yet when we read the ancient visions, we cannot help but feel a strange kinship. They saw the same phenomena, described with serpents and gods, while we describe with molecules and physics. Still, the essence is the same. An interstellar wanderer has crossed into our sky, breaking the order, forcing us to confront the vastness of what lies beyond. The vision of the sky serpent may be one of humanity's oldest memories of these encounters. From stone-carved glyphs to oral traditions, it threads through time, whispering that we have not been alone in watching the heavens. Visitors come, not often, but just often enough to be remembered. And when they do, we mark them in story, in prophecy, in warning. The serpent becomes more than a symbol. It becomes a witness, reminding us that the universe is not closed, that doors open and through them strangers pass. And now, with 3I Atlas, we see the serpent again. Not in glyphs or chants, but in spectral data glowing green against the void. The question lingers, are we living in the age that ancient prophecies tried to prepare us for? When the serpent crosses the sky, does it still carry the same message it once did? That the old skin of the world must be shed and something new must be born. Medieval seers. In the long stretch of the Middle Ages, Europe was a land suspended between faith and fear. The church bell tolled the hours, the seasons brought hunger or abundance, and above it all, the night sky glowed with signs that few understood, but many interpreted. Among the chroniclers, monks, and wandering visionaries of this age, strange celestial visitors were never ignored. They were recorded, analyzed, prayed over, and feared as omens. Within this context arises the recurring prophecy of a green torch in the heavens, a body that moved like a serpent of fire, appearing without warning and foretelling change. In dusty monastery scriptoria, monks copied manuscripts by candlelight, often noting celestial phenomena in the margins. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, for example, makes mention of fiery stars that streaked the sky in years of upheaval. But some records stand apart, describing not merely passing meteors, but elongated bodies that lingered, greenish flames, torches suspended above the horizon. In one 12th century chronicle, a monk writes of a star like a burning rod that appeared over the fields, lasting many nights. To those cloistered scribes, this was no natural accident. It was a herald of God's will, a signal that the world was on the edge of transformation. Visionaries of the age, seers, mystics, and prophets interpreted such events through the lens of apocalypse. Hildegard of Bingen, the German abbess and polymath, wrote extensively of her visions filled with fire, stars, and heavenly signs. In her Civias, she described a fiery star that broke into fragments, raining sparks across the world. Though couched in symbolic language, her imagery bears uncanny resemblance to the breakup of a comet or interstellar body, glowing, fragmenting, and scattering debris across the heavens. To Hildegard, these visions were warnings of spiritual corruption and divine judgment. To modern eyes, they could also be read as echoes of celestial visitors, objects like three atlas that resist easy explanation. In England, the 12th century historian William of Malmesbury noted that unusual comets coincided with political and social upheaval. He described a long-haired star that terrified peasants who believed it to be a dragon in the sky. The metaphor of the dragon, fiery, elongated, green-scaled, mirrors the serpent imagery of earlier civilizations. But in the medieval mind, dragons were more than symbols. They were apocalyptic creatures, tied to revelation and the end of days. A fiery dragon crossing the heavens was no less than a warning of impending doom. Nostradamus, perhaps the most famous seer of the late medieval and early Renaissance era, filled his quatrains with cryptic references to heavenly signs. Among them, he speaks of a great star that burns for 7 days, and of a long torch in the sky that would mark the turning of an age. His followers have interpreted these as predictions of comets, supernovae, or celestial catastrophes. Yet when placed alongside accounts of unusual elongated bodies, strange green torches that appear and vanish, they take on new resonance. Could Nostradamus, like others before him, have glimpsed visions of interstellar visitors that humanity only now can measure with telescopes? It was not only monks and seers who saw these things. Ordinary villagers, illiterate yet keenly attuned to the rhythms of nature, often reported strange heavenly fires. Folk tales from France and Germany speak of wandering lights that cross the sky, sparking fear of famine or plague. Peasants interpreted them as souls of the dead or angels bearing judgment. Their oral traditions survive in fragments, songs, prayers, and warnings passed down in whispers. Each repeats the same theme, the sudden appearance of a luminous body that disrupts the order of the heavens, accompanied by dread and prophecy. In Scandinavia, sagas and chronicles record fiery portents. One Norse text describes a heavenly serpent that hovered above the fjords, glowing with unnatural color. Its appearance, they believed, foretold war and the fall of kings. While this imagery resonates with earlier serpent myths, in the medieval Christian context, it merged with apocalyptic fears. Serpents were no longer simply cosmic beings. They were tied to the great dragon of Revelation, Satan himself, cast down from the stars. Thus, the arrival of a glowing, elongated object was interpreted as a spiritual threat, a literal battle between heaven and hell unfolding in the skies. The medieval seers did not separate astronomy from prophecy. To them, the two were one. Heavenly phenomena were messages, and those with vision interpreted them for the people. Every unusual star became a chapter in the unfolding story of salvation or damnation. This mindset ensured that records were made, chronicles of luminous bodies that appeared as torches, rods, or serpents. These accounts were preserved not because they were curious, but because they were essential warnings. They were signs that the cosmic order was shifting. One of the most intriguing medieval sources is the Annales of Ulster, an Irish chronicle that notes unusual comets and stars throughout the centuries. In one entry, it speaks of a fiery pillar that crossed the sky, interpreted as a sign of divine wrath. The choice of words, pillar, torch, rod, recurs across Europe. They all describe something long, narrow, and glowing. To medieval eyes, this was fire. To modern astronomy, it recalls the elongated shape of Oumuamua, the first known interstellar object, and the green glowing, fragmenting body of 3-eye Atlas. Could it be that the seers of the Middle Ages were not simply imagining doom, but witnessing rare interstellar visitors that passed into human memory? Even the art of the age encodes these visions. Illuminated manuscripts, often filled with stars and heavenly signs, sometimes depict comet-like forms stretching across the page. In stained glass windows, elongated flames hover over cities, painted as warnings to congregations. These were not random decorations. They were visual reminders of real events that shocked the sky watchers of their day. In every monastery, cathedral, and village, the message was the same. Look to the heavens, for there the future is written. Skeptics argue that all these records simply describe known comets. Halley's Comet, for instance, was visible in 1066, famously painted in the Bayeux Tapestry. Its appearance was tied to the Norman conquest of England, an event of monumental change. Yet the details recorded by some seers, green fire, elongated shapes, fragmenting bodies, go beyond what ordinary comets present. The medieval world, though steeped in superstition, was also observant. They knew the difference between meteors that flashed and vanished and stars that lingered for weeks. When they described something extraordinary, it was because they truly saw it. What sets the medieval seers apart is their obsession with interpretation. Unlike earlier civilizations, who tied such visitors to cycles of renewal, the Middle Ages filtered everything through apocalypse. A torch in the sky was not simply a sign of change, it was a harbinger of the end. The Book of Revelation loomed large in every vision, its dragon, stars falling to earth, and trumpets of judgment shaping the imagination of an age. Thus, when 3i Atlas lights up the night sky today, glowing green and fragmenting as it approaches Mars, we cannot help but hear their voices. To them, this would have been the dragon torch, the serpent flame, the herald of upheaval. Yet within their dark prophecies lies another truth. Hildegard, Nostradamus, and countless unnamed monks did not see these lights as meaningless. They believed the universe was alive with signs, that humanity was part of a larger story written in the stars, and perhaps they were right. Interstellar visitors remind us that our solar system is not isolated. Objects arrive from beyond, carrying mysteries and perhaps even the seeds of life. Medieval seers may have misread their meaning, but they did not misread their significance. These bodies matter. They bring with them change, wonder, and fear. The vision of the medieval seers is one of awe cloaked in dread. Their torches in the sky burned green and long, terrifying the faithful and inspiring prophets. We, with our telescopes, see 3i Atlas as data, spectra, and orbits. Yet the essence is unchanged. A stranger has entered our skies. It glows in ways we do not fully understand. And it reminds us, as it reminded them, that the heavens are never still, and that sometimes they whisper warnings we cannot afford to ignore. The shaman's dream, long before books and telescopes, there were visions. In the frozen expanses of Siberia, in the dense forests of North America, in the deserts of Australia, shamans journeyed beyond waking life into dreams and trances. For them, the stars were not distant spheres of gas. They were living beings, ancestors, and spirits that spoke when the world grew quiet. Across cultures, shamans described strikingly similar visions: an elongated stone, glowing with strange colors, drifting across the void. These visions did not belong to ordinary dreams. They were messages, glimpses of a cosmic visitor that seemed to move with intention. Many of these dream journeys carried the same warning. When the stone serpent from the stars appeared, the world would tremble with change. Among the Evenki people of Siberia, shamans entered trances through drumming and dance. They believed their souls could fly into the sky, guided by spirit animals to meet beings of light who dwelled beyond the firmament. Oral stories tell of one shaman who described a vision of a stone canoe gliding through the heavens. It was not a star nor a comet as they knew it. It was long, greenish, and trailed sparks that looked like tiny living lights. In his vision, these sparks fell toward a red world, what we now recognize as Mars. To his people, the dream was a prophecy of upheaval. To us, it sounds eerily like 3i Atlas, the green glowing interstellar object now cutting past Mars, fragmenting and shedding luminous debris. Far across the ocean, Native American tribes carried similar stories. The Lakota spoke of star visitors that appeared in dreams, sometimes as elongated stones that sang as they moved. Shamans described hearing the hum of these stones, a vibration that passed through the body as they approached. Some said the stones carried spirits of ancestors traveling between worlds. Others warned that the arrival of such a stone marked a time of trial, a season when the old order would be shed like a snake's skin. These dream visions were not regarded as fantasy, but as sacred truth, guiding communities through cycles of drought, migration, and renewal. In the Arctic, Inuit shamans spoke of skybones that glowed as they traveled across the heavens. These were not stars, they insisted, but fragments of another world. Some described them as alive, pulsing with a green light that made the ice glow at night. Hunters told stories of following shamans into trance, where they saw visions of these skybones hovering near strange lands, perhaps Mars, perhaps some symbolic otherworld. The shaman said these bones carried both danger and life. They could strike the earth and bring famine, but they could also carry seeds, awakening new growth where there had been none. Again, we hear echoes of panspermia, the modern theory that comets and interstellar bodies may carry the building blocks of life between planets. Dreams were not confined to shamans alone. Aboriginal elders in Australia carried dreamtime stories of cosmic wanderers. One legend speaks of a glowing serpent that slithered through the night sky, shedding bright fragments that became stars. The serpent passed near a red spirit world in the heavens, staining its body with fire. The story, repeated for generations, describes what sounds like a comet or elongated asteroid, but with the strange addition of glowing fragments that seemed alive, as if multiplying. 3A Atlas has displayed just such a phenomenon, fragmenting dust that clusters instead of dispersing, behaving almost like programmed matter. Could the Dreamtime visions be memories of ancient sky visitors woven into spiritual narrative? The Amazon rainforest holds similar lore. Shamans there consume sacred plants to enter visionary states, often describing encounters with sky serpents or stone boats moving through the stars. In one story, a shaman claims he was shown an elongated glowing object that pulsed with green fire. He said the spirits told him this visitor was not of Earth, nor even of the sun's family, but came from beyond, from the place where stars are born. To hear such words in a pre-scientific culture is chilling, for it mirrors precisely what we know today. 3A Atlas is not native to our solar system. It is an interstellar traveler, a body from another star system altogether. Why did so many shamans dream of elongated glowing stones? One explanation is that they encoded real celestial phenomena into their visions. Comets are dramatic and unpredictable, often inspiring myths. Yet the consistency of detail, the green light, the elongated form, the shedding of fragments, and the link to Mars suggests something more specific. Perhaps these dreams preserve distant memories of interstellar objects that visited Earth's skies long before modern astronomers could track them. Or perhaps the shamans, in their altered states, were attuned to archetypes that repeat whenever humanity witnesses a celestial stranger. Shamans also describe these visitors not just as objects, but as beings. They spoke of hearing their voices, feeling their vibrations, sensing their intentions. The stone canoes and skybones were not lifeless, they carried spirit. This perspective is echoed in how modern scientists puzzle over 3A Atlas. Its chemistry seems unnatural. Exotic carbon chains, isotopes that do not match solar system bodies, crystalline structures that behave like scaffolds. Some researchers half-jokingly call it a messenger. To shamans, that word was literal. The dream revealed it as a messenger between worlds, a bearer of change. The symbolic weight of these visions is profound. In shamanic tradition, dreams are not random. They are bridges between human consciousness and the greater cosmos. To dream of a stone serpent was to be entrusted with a message for the tribe. Prepare, change is coming. Sometimes the dream was accompanied by ritual. Shamans would carve elongated stones, paint serpents on hides, or lead ceremonies beneath the stars. These rituals were ways of grounding cosmic visions into earthly life, ensuring the community understood that the sky was speaking. Some of these traditions even linked the arrival of such objects with the birth of new life. Among certain North American tribes, shamans spoke of star seeds falling from glowing visitors. These seeds, they believed, entered rivers, forests, and even human dreams, sparking transformation. The parallel with panspermia is impossible to ignore. Could it be that shamans, through myth and vision, intuited what science now proposes, that life itself may spread across the cosmos on the backs of interstellar wanderers? Skeptics dismiss such visions as coincidence, hallucination, or metaphor. But the consistency across continents is striking. From Siberia to the Amazon, from the Arctic to Australia, shamans dreamed of elongated glowing stones, serpents in the sky, and fragments falling like seeds. They tied these visions to red worlds, to cycles of death and renewal, to the spread of life itself. In our time, 3A Atlas appears, glowing green, fragmenting as it nears Mars. Suddenly, the shaman's dream feels less like fantasy and more like a memory resurfacing. Perhaps the shamans were not predicting a single event, but describing a recurring truth, that our skies are visited by strangers from beyond. These visitors come rarely, but when they do, they alter how we see ourselves. They remind us that Earth is not isolated, that the cosmos is alive with movement and connection. The shaman's dream is the record of humanity's first encounters with this truth, wrapped in myth, but resonant with science. When 3I Atlas drifts near Mars, we measure it with instruments, plot its orbit, and speculate on its chemistry. But somewhere in the deep recesses of human memory, the shamans are still dreaming. They are drumming in the forests, chanting by the fire, entering the trance where the sky opens and the serpent appears. They whisper the same message they always have: the visitor has returned, and with it, the world must shed its skin. Change is here, and perhaps, just perhaps, life itself is being carried across the void once more. The prophecy of the twin suns. For as long as humans have looked to the heavens, the sun has been the one constant, a blazing heart that anchors life, rising and setting with unwavering rhythm. But scattered across cultures are prophecies and visions of a time when there would be two suns in the sky. To most, such tales were dismissed as poetic metaphor, warnings of war or famine cloaked in cosmic imagery. Yet to others, they represented literal phenomena, a second star-like light, bright enough to challenge the sun, glowing with colors no ordinary star should bear. At the center of these traditions is a haunting theme, the prophecy of the twin suns, a vision that often connects directly to Mars and to the arrival of wandering objects from beyond the solar system. Ancient Middle Eastern texts are among the earliest to mention dual suns. Some fragments from Mesopotamian prophecy tablets describe an age when the sun will be doubled and the earth will be scorched from both sides. To the scribes, this was a dire omen associated with famine and collapse. Scholars usually interpret such passages as symbolic, perhaps linked to solar halos or eclipses. Yet in some accounts, the second sun is described as greenish, elongated, and wandering, qualities that do not fit atmospheric effects. Instead, they evoke something stranger. A luminous visitor, bright enough to appear beside the sun. In the context of 3I Atlas, glowing green as it approaches Mars, the echo of such a prophecy feels uncanny. Among the Hopi people of North America, one of the most striking traditions speaks of the coming of the red Kachina and the blue Kachina. When the blue star appeared, the Hopi elders said it would dance in the sky as a harbinger of purification. Some versions of the prophecy speak of the sky seeming to hold two suns, one familiar, one alien, and that this balance would signal the end of one world and the beginning of another. While interpretations vary, the imagery of a second brilliant body glowing in the heavens is consistent. To the Hopi, the twin suns prophecy was not merely natural, it was spiritual, a dividing line between eras. In the legends of the Maya, there is a tale of a serpent of light that passed so close to the sun it seemed to merge with it, creating two blazing forms. In their codices, certain glyphs show doubled solar disks, often tied to periods of upheaval. Some researchers argue these represent solar conjunctions or rare eclipses, but others note the unusual emphasis on green and red light, colors associated not with ordinary solar events but with cometary phenomena. If a glowing green body like 3I Atlas passed near Mars or appeared in alignment with the sun, ancient observers might well describe it as the second sun, a twin blazing presence in the heavens. Medieval Europe too preserved echoes of this vision. Chroniclers sometimes wrote of the sun split in two, or of a second blazing torch near the sun. In 1204, for example, an account in Ireland describes two suns visible in the firmament, one green and fierce, the other gold and steady. This, they claimed, preceded years of war and famine. The church interpreted such phenomena as divine warnings, signs of judgment. Today, atmospheric scientists suggest sundogs or halos, yet the details of color, elongation, and movement suggest that not all such records can be explained so easily. The Chinese astronomical tradition is particularly meticulous, with centuries of careful sky records. In the Book of Jin from the 4th century CE, there is a report of two suns in the sky that terrified the people. The text notes that the second sun was smaller, greenish, and lasted for several days before fading. Unlike sundogs, which are common and transient, this was persistent, elongated, and described as traveling slowly across the sky. For modern readers, The description calls to mind a luminous comet or interstellar object whose brightness rivaled the sun during daylight hours. Again, the resonance with 3I Atlas is striking, a green glowing wanderer that could appear as a rival sun under the right conditions. Symbolically, the idea of twin suns has always been tied to transformation. In Egypt, the sun was Ra, the eternal god, yet in certain temple carvings, twin solar discs appear. Egyptologists debate their meaning, some linking them to duality, others to rare astronomical events. One inscription at Dendera describes the day when Ra was joined by his brother in fire. Whether symbolic or literal, the idea of two suns was never neutral. It represented upheaval, a shift in cosmic order. When the order of the heavens changed, so too would the order of the world. The twin suns prophecy also echoes in Norse mythology. During Ragnarok, the end of days, it was said that the sky would split and strange lights would fill the heavens. The sun would be devoured by the wolf's skull, but before that moment, another light would burn fiercely alongside it. Some sagas describe this as a fiery serpent, others as a second blazing orb. In both cases, the imagery is of a doubled sun, an omen of final change. So why would so many cultures imagine or record the arrival of a second sun? Part of the answer may lie in the way interstellar visitors behave. Ordinary comets often flare brightly when they release gases, but rarely do they sustain light powerful enough to rival the sun. Objects like 3I Atlas, however, with their exotic chemistry and unusual glow, may behave differently. If an interstellar body releases vast amounts of exotic molecules, scattering light in unusual ways, it could appear startlingly bright, even strange in color. To ancient observers, such a spectacle would be indistinguishable from the rise of a second sun. There is also the psychological dimension. A second sun implies duality, life and death, creation and destruction, old world and new world. Prophets and visionaries seized on this imagery because it perfectly embodied the transition they foresaw. One sun meant stability, two meant chaos, rebirth, and judgment. When villagers saw strange lights near the horizon, prophets interpreted them as the cosmic balance breaking, a sign that humanity was entering a new age. In our own time, the idea of twin suns has reemerged in popular imagination. Astronomers searching for exoplanets often discuss binary star systems where two suns dance around each other. Science fiction has embraced the image, from Tatooine in Star Wars to endless speculative novels, and yet behind the fiction, the echoes of prophecy remain. Today, as 3I Atlas glows green near Mars, fragmenting and brightening, one wonders, if it were to flare more fiercely, could it appear to human eyes as a second sun rising beside the first? Could we too live under the prophecy of the twin suns? What unites all these accounts is the theme of warning. Two suns in the sky was never celebrated. It was feared. It meant the cycle was ending. It meant a great test was near. The Hopi said the blue kachina would bring purification. The Chinese said famine would follow. The Irish said war would come. The Egyptians said Ra's brother meant rebirth through fire. Always the twin suns marked transition, upheaval, and change. Perhaps this is the greatest lesson of the prophecy. Whether born of natural atmospheric effects, brilliant comets, or true interstellar visitors, the vision of two suns burned itself into human memory as the ultimate omen. It taught people to prepare, to expect transformation, to face endings and beginnings. And now, in the age of telescopes, when 3I Atlas passes through our skies, glowing green as it nears the red world of Mars, we remember the old stories. We remember the seers and prophets who warned of doubled suns, who said the heavens would blaze twice before the world was remade. Whether symbolic or literal, the prophecy endures, reminding us that when a second light burns beside the first, history itself is about to turn. Encoded star maps, scattered across the world, carved into stone, painted on rock walls, or woven into myth, there exist mysterious patterns that seem to map the heavens. These are not simple decorations or idle doodles. They are deliberate, precise, and persistent across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Archaeologists call them petroglyphs, geoglyphs, or sacred diagrams, but within their strange geometries lies something deeper, what some interpret as encoded star maps. These maps tell not only of the familiar constellations above, but also of strange visitors, elongated bodies, and luminous serpents that moved in ways ordinary stars do not. When we read them carefully, they begin to whisper of ancient encounters with celestial wanderers like 3 Atlas. Take the Nazca lines in Peru, those enormous geoglyphs that stretch across the desert floor. Most are recognizable animals and shapes, but some are simply long, straight lines extending toward the horizon. While many scholars argue these align with solstices or rituals, others note that some lines point precisely to where comets and unusual celestial events were recorded by nearby cultures. Among them, a series of elongated shapes seems less like animals and more like rods or torches in the sky. Could these be depictions of luminous visitors that startled the Nazca and were immortalized in the sand? In the American Southwest, petroglyphs carved by the ancestral Puebloan peoples show spirals, stars, and elongated streaks. Near Chaco Canyon, one carving shows a starburst shape next to a handprint, widely believed to represent the supernova of 1054 that created the Crab Nebula. Yet alongside these are other carvings, elongated, serpent-like forms with trails of dots that do not match ordinary stars. Some researchers suggest they depict comets, but their scale, the emphasis on greenish pigment in some rock art, and their alignment toward Mars raise other possibilities. Perhaps these shamans encoded a rare interstellar visitor into stone, ensuring their descendants would never forget. In Australia, Aboriginal rock paintings often depict the sky serpent, or rainbow serpent, sometimes in connection with celestial navigation. These elongated figures stretch across cave ceilings, dotted with glowing points that clearly represent stars. Some interpretations suggest these are teaching maps for constellations. But others note that certain serpents point toward the ecliptic path, while others point elsewhere, toward regions of the sky where unusual wanderers might have appeared. When read symbolically, they are not simply myths but instructions. Follow the serpent, for it shows the path of the visitor from beyond. Europe has its share of encoded maps as well. In Ireland, the Passage tomb at Newgrange contains spirals and arcs carved into its stones, aligning with the winter solstice sunrise. Most see these as solar symbols, yet among them are elongated shapes that resemble comets. One theory holds that Neolithic peoples recorded not only the cycles of the sun, but also rare celestial intruders. The elongated carvings, sometimes branching into fragments, bear uncanny resemblance to modern depictions of Three-Eye Atlas breaking apart. To carve such detail into sacred tombs suggests these visitors were not mere curiosities. They were events that redefined how people saw life, death, and renewal. In Egypt, the ceilings of certain temples and tombs are covered in star maps, constellations, boats carrying gods, serpents winding across the sky. At Dendera, the famous zodiac shows a celestial order filled with planets, stars, and strange forms. Among them, elongated flame-like shapes appear, often tied to the god Osiris, who symbolized death and resurrection. Some scholars argue these shapes represent comets, yet the precision with which Egyptians aligned temples to celestial events suggests to us something more intentional. These were not random lights. They were visitors mapped alongside gods, elevated into divine significance. Encoded into sacred art, they served as reminders that heaven itself was alive with motion. The Maya and Aztec carried this tradition into their codices. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan books, contains astronomical tables of shocking accuracy, predicting eclipses and Venus cycles with precision. Yet tucked among these are depictions of serpentine figures spewing stars. Scholars interpret these as comets, tied to prophecy and destruction. But the glyphs often emphasize unusual details, elongated forms, green coloration, and proximity to Mars in their diagrams. If accurate, these could represent attempts to encode the passage of interstellar visitors, embedding them into prophecy so that future generations would recognize their return. Encoded star maps were not always drawn on stone. Sometimes they were woven into oral stories. Polynesian navigators memorized the sky through chants that described not just the fixed constellations, but wandering stars that appeared unpredictably. Their chants describe elongated, glowing bodies, some green, some fiery red, that crossed the sea of stars. These were remembered not for beauty alone, but for danger. They disrupted navigation, forcing sailors to rethink their maps. By encoding them into oral tradition, the Polynesians ensured their descendants would remember the strange intruders from the heavens. One of the most mysterious encoded maps comes from Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a site over 11,000 years old. Its carved pillars contain animals and symbols arranged in patterns some researchers argue correspond to constellations. One carving shows a vulture holding a circular object, often interpreted as the sun. Nearby, elongated forms with dots trail downward. A controversial theory suggests this represents a comet strike, or at least the memory of a cosmic visitor. If so, it would be among the earliest encoded star maps in human history, proof that our ancestors recorded more than just seasonal cycles. They recorded disruptions, visitors, and omens. But why encode these maps? Why not simply tell stories? The answer lies in the weight these events carried. A wandering star was not like rain or wind. It was a rupture in the cosmic order. For societies that believed the heavens dictated fate, recording such events was essential. Encoded maps were survival tools, spiritual guides, and warnings. They said, "Remember this sign, for when it comes again, the world will change." Modern astronomy gives us a new lens. When we analyze these carvings and diagrams, we can compare them to known comet appearances. Some align with Halley's Comet, others with the supernova of 2054. But some do not match anything known. They describe elongated bodies that never returned, glowing with strange colors, fragmenting as they moved. These anomalies align perfectly with the behavior of interstellar objects like Oumuamua and 3I Atlas. They do not follow cycles, they pass once and vanish. To ancient peoples, that made them unforgettable and worth encoding into eternal maps. What's more, many of these maps tie the visitors to Mars. Rock art, codices, and chants alike place emphasis on the red planet as the neighbor of the wandering star. Why Mars? Perhaps because interstellar objects often swing close to it, or perhaps because ancient people saw Mars as the testing ground of gods, a stage where cosmic dramas played out. Whatever the reason, the encoded maps consistently link visitors in the red planet, echoing precisely what modern astronomers see with 3I Atlas as it grazes past Mars. There is a haunting implication here. If humanity has recorded these visitors for millennia, then 3I Atlas is not the first. Countless others may have passed, each leaving marks on human memory. Petroglyphs, geoglyphs, star zodiacs, and chants are not random art. They are humanity's intergenerational record of contact with interstellar wanderers. They are star maps, encoded not for beauty, but for survival. And now, in our own age, we create star maps with telescopes, satellites, and digital data. We chart 3I Atlas with precision our ancestors could not dream of. Yet at the core, we are doing the same thing. We are encoding its passage into our collective memory, ensuring that when future generations ask about the green torch that passed near Mars, we will have an answer. The encoded star maps of the ancients whisper across time. We have seen the visitors before. We carved them into stone so you would know them when they returned. And now, as 3 Atlas glows green in the darkness, fragmenting as it moves, we realize the truth. The maps were not just records, they were warnings. The heavens change, and when they do, the world below must change with them. Visions of remote viewers. The 20th century ushered in an age when science seemed to replace mysticism, yet paradoxically, it also sparked a renewed fascination with the hidden powers of the mind. In the shadow of the Cold War, government agencies experimented with extrasensory perception, clairvoyance, and what came to be called remote viewing. At its simplest, remote viewing was the attempt to see distant places or future events with the mind alone, bypassing the limits of ordinary senses. Though controversial and often dismissed, the records left behind are filled with uncanny descriptions of celestial objects, long, glowing, green, and foreign. Among the most unsettling are visions that seem to anticipate the arrival of 3 Atlas centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. The US government's Stargate project, declassified in the 1990s, revealed that intelligence agencies invested serious resources into exploring psychic phenomena. While most sessions focused on earthly targets, military bases, submarines, or hidden documents, some remote viewers reported spontaneous visions of the sky. In transcripts, they described a long, glowing object drifting through the void, not from here. One viewer even claimed it was near a red planet, like a desert world. At the time, these words were treated as meaningless digressions. Today, they sound eerily like descriptions of 3I Atlas glowing near Mars. Even outside formal programs, individuals practicing remote viewing or trance states have produced strikingly similar accounts. In the 1970s, several independent psychics reported visions of a green torch in the sky that was not a comet, not a meteor, but something that carried purpose. They claimed it pulsed with light and shed fragments like living seeds. When pressed, they described its trajectory as foreign, falling into the solar system like an intruder. These records, though dismissed by skeptics, resonate with modern data on interstellar objects, bodies that arrive from beyond, following paths that defy ordinary orbital logic. The idea of perceiving such things through the mind is not entirely modern. Remote viewing is only the latest name for a practice shamans and mystics claimed for centuries. Medieval seers entered trance states and described torches in the sky. Aboriginal elders dreamed of serpents shedding fragments. Even the Delphic oracle of ancient Greece spoke of flames from the void that would descend upon Mars. In each case, the human mind seemed able, through altered states, to grasp glimpses of celestial visitors that physical eyes could not yet confirm. The remote viewers of the 20th century stand at the end of this long lineage of visionaries. What is striking is the consistency of imagery. Remote viewers repeatedly described elongated bodies rather than round stars, glowing green light instead of white, and a connection to Mars. One declassified transcript describes an object shaped like a spear, long and sharp, glowing in a way that is not reflection, but emission. Another mentions clusters of fragments, behaving as though alive, clustering instead of dispersing. These details are nearly identical to scientific reports on 3I Atlas, which glows with exotic chemistry and whose dust particles appear to self-assemble rather than scatter. Could it be coincidence, or did the visions tap into something real? Skeptics argue that remote viewing results are vague, subject to interpretation, and often wrong. And yet, within the mass of failed predictions, there are outliers, descriptions that fit discoveries made decades later. For instance, before Oumuamua was discovered in 2017, a handful of remote viewers had described a cigar-shaped object from another star system. At the time, astronomers scoffed. Yet when Oumuamua appeared, elongated and tumbling, their words seemed prophetic. Similarly, with 3I Atlas, the green glow and connection to Mars mirror earlier visions in uncanny ways. Some researchers propose that the human mind in altered states may access information outside linear time. If so, remote viewers could be glimpsing future events, encoding them in strange language. Others argue that consciousness is entangled with the cosmos itself, capable of sensing interstellar visitors before instruments detect them. To mainstream science, these are fringe ideas. Yet history shows that prophecy and vision have often preceded discovery. When Galileo first turned his telescope skyward, he only confirmed what seers and dreamers had long claimed, that the heavens are not fixed, but alive with movement. Remote viewing records also tie the arrival of such objects to transformation on Earth. Several sessions describe emotional impressions rather than visual ones: change, upheaval, seeding, awakening. The objects were not simply rocks, they carried significance, almost agency. Some viewers claim they brought messages or even seeds of life. This echoes the shamanic traditions of the past, where sky stones carried vitality and transformation. It also resonates with modern panspermia theory, that comets and interstellar bodies could scatter organic molecules, sparking life across planets. What shamans intuited in trance and what remote viewers perceived in vision may be converging with scientific speculation. One particularly haunting vision came from a viewer in 1983. He described an elongated green glowing body drifting past a red desert world, scattering luminous seeds into its thin air. At the time, Mars was not yet explored in detail, and such imagery seemed like fantasy. But now, as 3I Atlas approaches Mars and scientists debate whether its fragments could alter the Martian atmosphere or surface chemistry, the vision reads like a premonition. Whether coincidence or not, it reflects the uncanny overlap between psychic perception and astronomical reality. Beyond government experiments, ordinary people have reported dreams and visions of similar nature. In online archives of dream journals, stretching back decades, one finds repeated entries of two suns in the sky, green torches drifting near Mars, and serpents of fire scattering sparks. These ordinary dreamers had no reason to fabricate such imagery, yet their accounts align with the archetypes of shamans, prophets, and remote viewers alike. Jungian psychologists might call these archetypes collective symbols emerging from the unconscious. But another possibility remains: that the human mind, collectively, has always been sensitive to disruptions in the cosmic order. When an interstellar visitor arrives, we dream of it before we measure it. If this is true, then the visions of remote viewers are not aberrations, but part of a much older tradition, the human ability to sense when the heavens are shifting. Shamans danced it, prophets wrote it, medieval seers painted it, and remote viewers recorded it under government supervision. The language differs, but the imagery remains: elongated bodies, glowing green, scattering fragments, tied to Mars, and carrying change. Today we have instruments that track 3 Atlas with precision. We know its trajectory, its chemistry, its fragmentation patterns. Yet the visions remain valuable, not as scientific proof, but as cultural resonance. They remind us that humans have always sought meaning in the sky, and that sometimes intuition glimpses truths before data confirms them. The visions of remote viewers may not be literal prophecy, but they point to an enduring truth, that interstellar visitors are never just physical objects. They are symbols, messengers, catalysts of change. As 3i Atlas drifts through our solar system, glowing green against the void, we find ourselves repeating the pattern of history. We measure, we speculate, and we dream. Remote viewers saw it before it arrived, shamans danced it before science named it, and now we live in its presence, wondering what message it carries. Perhaps that is the essence of the visions of remote viewers. Not prediction in the narrow sense, but connection. A reminder that the human mind, when opened, is capable of glimpsing the vastness beyond. Whether by drumbeat trance, prophecy, or psychic experiment, we have always seen the visitors before they appeared, and we have always known that when they come, the world is never the same again. The green flame omen. Throughout human history, the color green in the sky has carried a weight of mystery and fear. To farmers, green lightning before a storm meant destruction. To sailors, strange green auroras meant storms at sea. But there is another kind of green light, rarer and far more haunting: the glow of a celestial visitor. In chronicles, myths, and prophecies, we find repeated references to a green flame in the heavens, an omen that burned without smoke or ash, drifting slowly as if alive. To ancient seers, this was no ordinary star or comet. It was a sign that the order of the cosmos had been broken, and that change, often violent, was near. The phenomenon of green glowing objects is not imaginary. Modern astronomers know that certain molecules, especially diatomic carbon and cyanogen, emit a green glow when illuminated by sunlight in space. Comets often display this, though usually faintly. Yet in some rare cases, the green flame is so bright it rivals stars and stirs awe among all who see it. One such case is happening now with 3i Atlas, the interstellar visitor whose spectral signature burns with lines of exotic carbon and oxygen, creating a brilliant emerald glow as it approaches Mars. For us, this is a puzzle of chemistry. For ancient peoples, it was the green flame omen. In medieval chronicles, we read of stars that burned green and torches of emerald fire. A 14th century monk in France described a glowing object in the night sky. Not red like Mars, nor gold like the sun, but green, as if lit from within by a forest fire. To the villagers who gathered in terror, the apparition was read as a divine sign. Weeks later, famine struck, and the connection between the omen and earthly suffering was sealed in memory. Whether coincidence or not, the tale became part of Europe's prophetic tradition. When the sky burns green, disaster follows. In China, careful records of the heavens often mention stars of unusual colors. In 675 CE, the Tang Dynasty court astronomers noted the appearance of a green-hued broom star that swept across the constellations. It glowed brightly for weeks before fading. The emperor's advisors interpreted it as a warning of political upheaval, and indeed, within the year, rebellions shook the empire. The term broom star was often used for comets, but this one was different. The chroniclers emphasized its strange green glow, not its tail. The detail suggests a body rich in exotic compounds, something like 3i Atlas, unlike the familiar white comets of the solar system. Among the Maya, codices and oral stories describe serpents of green fire slithering across the sky. The glyphs often show them shedding fragments, scattering glowing points of light. These fragments were called seeds of change, and their arrival was feared and honored. The Maya tied them to cycles of death and rebirth, seeing them as heralds of transformation. When the green flame appeared, the priests warned, Kings would fall and new eras would dawn. To us, their drawings look like comets, but to them, the unusual green hue meant something more. Not a star of this world, but a visitor from beyond. Even in the Arctic, Inuit shamans told stories of green bones of the sky that pulsed above the ice. Some said they were the spirits of ancestors, others that they were omens of famine. Hunters described nights when the snow itself glowed faintly green, lit by a light that was not the aurora. These rare events were marked in memory because they broke the rhythm of nature. The sky was supposed to glow with stars or the red light of Mars, not with an alien, living green. When it did, the people prepared themselves for trials. The association of green with omens is ancient. Green is the color of life, of growth, of renewal. But in the heavens, it takes on another meaning. A green flame is unnatural, unsettling, suggesting both creation and destruction. Alchemists in the Middle Ages believed green fire was tied to transmutation, to processes that broke down and remade matter. To see it in the sky, therefore, was to witness the cosmos itself transmuting. The green flame omen was not simply light, it was a symbol that the world itself was being altered. Modern parallels only deepen the mystery. When Three-Eye Atlas was first observed, astronomers were shocked by its color. Unlike ordinary comets, which glow white or yellowish, Atlas burned emerald, its spectrum filled with unusual molecular signatures. Some even noted spectral lines more common in laboratory plasmas than in natural comets. In medieval prophecy, this would not have been a chemical curiosity. It would have been the very definition of an omen, the sky alight with unnatural fire. In Norse mythology, green flames in the sky were tied to Ragnarok, the end of days. The Eddas describe the heavens aflame with strange colors, green fire mingling with red. Scholars usually link this to auroras, common in the north, but some descriptions mention elongated forms drifting across the heavens, unlike the dancing curtains of the aurora. These forms are more like comets or interstellar bodies. If the Norse did witness a glowing green visitor, they may have folded it into their apocalyptic myths. To them, the green flame meant not only the end of an age, but the rebirth of the world through fire and flood. The Islamic world also preserved such records. Scholars like al-Biruni and Ibn Sina noted unusual celestial phenomena, carefully distinguishing between planets, stars, and comets. One account describes a green torch that lingered for weeks, unlike any meteor. The scholars debated its meaning, some arguing it was a natural sign of the heavens' imperfection, others declaring it divine punishment. Again, the color was the detail that set it apart. A green flame was rare and therefore it carried weight. Why then was the green flame always interpreted as an omen? Perhaps because it was rare enough to inspire awe, yet consistent enough across centuries to form a pattern. People saw green torches in the sky, and soon after, upheaval followed: plague, war, famine, or political collapse. Whether by coincidence or correlation, the link hardened into prophecy. The green flame became shorthand for disruption. In today's language, we might say the green flame is disruption of another kind, scientific. Three-Eye Atlas defies ordinary comet models. Its chemistry is exotic, its dust behaves strangely, and its glow is unlike anything in the solar system. Scientists struggle to explain it fully, suggesting it may be fragmenting or that its molecules come from environments unlike our sun's. This scientific mystery is, in its own way, an omen, a sign that our understanding of interstellar matter is incomplete and that the cosmos still holds surprises. But the symbolic weight remains. Humanity has always linked green fire to transformation. When forests burn, flames glow green as copper ignites. When auroras shimmer, they paint the sky with green life. When interstellar visitors pass, they glow green as if carrying the memory of alien chemistry. The green flame omen, then, is not just about fear, it is about renewal. It tells us that the heavens are alive, that new ages begin when strange light enters the sky. As 3 Atlas drifts near Mars, glowing emerald in the darkness, we are reminded of this ancient pattern. The monks, the Maya, the Chinese astronomers, the Inuit shamans, all saw the green flame and prepared for change. Now we see it with telescopes, satellites, and cameras. But our reaction is the same: awe, unease, the sense that something greater than ourselves is moving. The green flame omen whispers across history. When the sky burns green, the old order trembles. Whether it heralds famine or discovery, destruction or creation, it always means the same thing: that the world is not finished becoming. The cosmos still shapes us, still tests us, still writes omens in fire. And perhaps as 3 Atlas passes near Mars, we are living under one such omen now. The Keeper of Life. In every culture, myths have spoken of stones from the sky, not as cold, dead fragments of rock, but as carriers of spirit, energy, or even the spark of life itself. To some peoples, they were gifts of the gods, to others, they were omens of doom. Yet a recurring theme echoes across continents, that a celestial visitor could arrive carrying the seeds of creation, awakening new worlds where there was only silence. This theme crystallizes in the archetype of the Keeper of Life, a mysterious body drifting from beyond, holding within it the potential to spark existence. And now, as astronomers puzzle over 3i Atlas with its exotic chemistry and green glow, we are reminded that perhaps the ancients intuited something science is only beginning to explore, the idea that life itself may ride upon interstellar messengers. The Sumerians, among the first to record humanity's cosmic musings, spoke of the Me, sacred gifts carried by gods from the heavens. Some texts described stones of fire that fell from the sky, containing the essence of creation. These were not mere meteors, they were thought to hold wisdom, fertility, and the spark that animated the earth. Priests believed that when these stones arrived, crops would flourish and civilizations would rise. Whether symbolic or literal, the association was clear. Sky visitors were keepers of life. In the traditions of the Dogon people of West Africa, we find another echo. Their myths speak of beings from the star Sirius who brought knowledge to Earth. Central to these stories is the image of a seed carried from the heavens, often described as a glowing, elongated form that descended into the rivers and gave rise to fertility. Some anthropologists dismiss this as symbolic myth, but the detail of a luminous, wandering body carrying seeds of life resonates powerfully with modern scientific theories. The Dogon saw the sky as a womb, and its visitors as midwives of creation. The indigenous peoples of North America also preserved similar visions. In Algonquian lore, star stones were said to fall from the sky carrying the breath of life. Shamans claimed that if these stones were placed in water, they would awaken vitality, blessing the land and the people. Some describe dreams of long, glowing stones crossing the heavens, their fragments falling like seeds onto the earth. These seeds, they believed, entered rivers, soil, and even human dreams, planting change wherever they landed. In these visions, the celestial visitors were not bringers of death, but carriers of transformation. Modern science lends strange weight to these old myths. The panspermia hypothesis, once fringe, now occupies serious space in scientific debate. It suggests that life may not have originated solely on Earth, but could have been seeded here by comets, asteroids, or even interstellar objects carrying organic molecules. Laboratory studies have shown that amino acids, nucleobases, and other life-building blocks can survive the harsh conditions of space embedded in dust and ice. When delivered to a planetary surface, they could spark the chemistry that leads to life. If so, then the ancients were right to see such visitors as keepers of life, bringing more than just stone and flame. They brought possibility. 3i Atlas embodies this mystery. Spectral analysis reveals exotic compounds, carbon chains of unusual length, and molecules that do not match ordinary solar system bodies. Some researchers suggest these could be precursors to RNA, the very scaffolding of life. Others note crystalline structures that behave more like biological scaffolds than inert minerals. If true, then 3i Atlas may not simply be a rock from another star. It may be a carrier of life's raw ingredients. To ancient minds, its emerald glow and fragmenting body would have been unmistakable, a keeper of life drifting through the void, scattering seeds across the cosmos. The Egyptians, too, wove this idea into myth. They believed the god Osiris, lord of life and rebirth, came from the stars in a flame of green. Within temples, carvings depict elongated star forms raining sparks upon the Nile. Priests taught that these sparks fertilized the river, ensuring abundance. This belief was not symbolic alone. It reflected an awareness that the heavens provided the conditions for earthly life. The Nile's fertility was cosmic as much as terrestrial. To them, the visitor from beyond was Osiris himself, the keeper of life, who ensured that cycles of death were always followed by renewal. In Mesoamerica, the Aztec deity Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was not only a god of wisdom, but also a bringer of corn, fertility, and sustenance. In some codices, his arrival is depicted as a serpent of green fire descending from the stars. He was a destroyer of the old, but also the bearer of new life. Scholars often read this as mythic allegory, but the imagery is telling: a green, elongated body carrying seeds of sustenance. Once again, the theme emerges. The heavens hold life, and their messengers carry it to earth. Among Polynesian navigators, chants speak of stone canoes drifting across the heavens, glowing with strange light. These were said to scatter gifts across the sea, blessings that would ensure fish, crops, and safe passage. Some chants even describe one such canoe passing near a red star world, scattering luminous seeds before vanishing. This imagery is astonishingly close to our current vision of Three-Eye Atlas near Mars, fragmenting as it goes. To Polynesian minds, these objects were not threats. They were gifts, keepers of life ensuring abundance across the islands. But the keeper of life was never a simple figure. In myth, such visitors often carried duality: life and death, creation and destruction. A green flame in the sky could mean famine as easily as fertility. Seeds that fall can awaken crops, or poison them. To many traditions, the keeper of life was also a tester, bringing trials to determine whether humanity was ready for the renewal it offered. This duality persists today as scientists debate whether interstellar visitors could seed life or carry harmful compounds. The visitor brings possibility, but possibility is not always safe. The Norse myths capture this duality well. In Ragnarok, the world serpent Jormungandr rises, spitting venom that poisons the earth, yet also ensuring the rebirth of the world after its destruction. The serpent is thus both destroyer and renewer. If we strip away the symbolic language, it echoes the same theme. An elongated body from beyond carries within it both death and renewal. The keeper of life is not gentle, it is transformative, burning away what was old to make way for what is new. Modern science, again, mirrors this. Some theories suggest that interstellar objects could deliver organic molecules, but also potentially harmful chemistry or even microbial life incompatible with Earth. If life is universal, then its seeds may not always be benign. The keeper of life, then, could also be the keeper of death, reshaping worlds in ways that old civilizations feared and revered. As Three-Eye Atlas approaches Mars, the symbolism grows sharper. Mars has long been humanity's mirror, the red world that tempts us with the possibility of life. If fragments of an interstellar visitor strike its surface or scatter dust into its atmosphere, they may alter its chemistry in ways we cannot yet predict. Could Three-Eye Atlas plant seeds that awaken dormant processes? Could it deliver molecules that stir life where none exists? To ancient seers, the answer would have been simple: yes. The keeper of life had arrived, and Mars would be changed. For us, the question is scientific, but the resonance with prophecy is undeniable. The ancients saw what we now measure. They called such visitors gods, serpents, or omens. We call them interstellar objects. Yet both perspectives agree. They matter. They change worlds. They carry within them the essence of life, or at least its possibility. The keeper of life, then, is not only a myth, but a framework for understanding. It tells us that the cosmos is not empty. It is fertile. It scatters seeds across space, waiting for them to take root. Each interstellar visitor is a gardener of sorts, a wandering messenger that may plant something where it lands. Earth itself may owe its life to such visitors. And now, with Three-Eye Atlas glowing green near Mars, we may be witnessing the same process again. Whether as myth or science, the meaning is the same. The keeper of life arrives rarely, but when it does, it changes everything. It reminds us that life is not confined to one planet, one system, or one story. It is a cosmic force carried in flames, dust, and stone. And when the sky burns green, scattering seeds across the void, we are reminded that life itself may be the universe's oldest traveler, the prophets of the desert. In the vast deserts of the Middle East and North Africa, where the horizon stretches unbroken and the night sky unfurls like an infinite scroll, prophets once looked upward and claimed to see messages written in the stars. These were lands of extremes: heat by day, cold by night, silence broken only by wind and the footsteps of caravans. It was here, in this stark emptiness, that celestial visitors were noticed most keenly. Without mountains or forests to obscure them, strange lights in the heavens burned clear against the darkness. Among desert prophets, one vision echoed again and again: the coming of a wandering star that would hover near Mars before vanishing. This vision became enshrined in texts, oral traditions, and mystical commentaries as a sign of transformation, a messenger star that was not of this world. In ancient Mesopotamia, prophets tied to the ziggurat temples kept watch from towers. Their task was not simply to chart the heavens, but to interpret them as the speech of the gods. Tablets from the library of Ashurbanipal mention a star that was not a star, burning in the path of Mars. The description is cryptic, but its meaning was profound. To the desert prophets, Mars was the planet of war, blood, and upheaval. For a foreign star to linger near it was no trivial sight. It was a warning that divine judgment or cosmic change was at hand. This belief that wandering lights near Mars heralded upheaval would persist across centuries, shaping Islamic, Jewish, and Christian prophetic traditions alike. Among the Hebrew prophets, visions of stars and heavenly torches appear frequently. The book of Joel, for instance, speaks of wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke. While often interpreted symbolically, some scholars suggest these words were inspired by real celestial events. Later rabbinical commentaries describe a green torch that shall appear near Edom, often symbolically linked with Mars, and it shall vanish suddenly. The color green, unusual for celestial lights, aligns with modern knowledge of cometary chemistry and with the emerald glow of 3 Atlas. To the desert prophets, this was not chemistry. It was covenant, a reminder that the heavens themselves participated in the fate of nations. In early Islamic mysticism, the desert sky was a canvas of divine signs. The Quran itself speaks of stars as missiles and lamps hung in the heavens, placed there by God as both guidance and warning. While mainstream interpretations remain symbolic, Sufi commentaries expand these images into mystical visions. Some Sufi poets describe the emerald torch and the stranger star that hovers by the Red Wanderer. For them, the Red Wanderer was unmistakably Mars. The stranger star, glowing green and unfamiliar, was a messenger of renewal, sometimes feared as apocalypse, other times welcomed as revelation. In the mystical desert imagination, the appearance of such a star was proof that the cosmos was alive with divine drama, its messengers traveling from beyond human comprehension. The Nabateans, desert traders who carved their cities into the rocks of Petra, also left celestial symbolism behind. Though little of their prophetic lore survives intact, fragments suggest they revered stars that appeared unexpectedly. Archaeologists have found carvings of elongated torch-like symbols near depictions of Mars. While the exact meaning is debated, some scholars argue these carvings reflect observations of cometary or interstellar objects that passed close to the red planet. For desert traders who navigated by the stars, such disruptions in the night sky would have been unforgettable. In Arabian oral tradition, the poets of the Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic age, sang of stars that appeared like torches by the Red One and warned of calamity. These poets were not astronomers, yet their verses carried prophetic weight. The desert was a place where survival hinged on interpreting signs, whether in the flight of birds, the shape of clouds, or the lights in the sky. To see an elongated glowing body near Mars would not have been dismissed as curiosity. It would have been woven into poetry, prophecy, and warning. The Bedouin, who carried oral tradition across centuries, tell stories of a wandering lamp that visited the skies once in many generations. It was said to drift near the planet they called the Red Warrior, Mars, staying for nights or weeks before vanishing into the void. The lamp was green, they said, and those who saw it knew a great trial was coming. Some claimed the lamp carried not destruction, but seeds, gifts from the heavens that would awaken barren lands. Here again is the duality of desert prophecy. The visitor was both curse and blessing, omen of trial and promise of renewal. One striking story comes from early Christian monks who settled in the Egyptian desert. In their ascetic solitude, they spent nights in prayer beneath the stars. One record, attributed to a 4th century anchorite, describes a vision. A torch of emerald fire rested near the red star, and I trembled, for I knew the heavens were not silent. The monk interpreted it as a sign of divine testing. Yet his words echo perfectly the appearance of 3 Atlas today, glowing green near Mars. The resonance across 1600 years is startling. Why were desert prophets so focused on Mars? perhaps because Mars is one of the brightest and most easily recognized planets. Its red hue, ominous and blood-like, made it a natural symbol of conflict and fate. To see a foreign star draw close to it was to witness a celestial meeting of immense significance. Mars was the stage, and the visitor was the messenger. Together, they told a story that no prophet could ignore. The symbolic weight of these visions is immense. The desert was a place where survival meant reading signs of rain, of sandstorms, of safe passage. Extending this logic to the sky was natural. Yet what makes these prophecies remarkable is their consistency. From Mesopotamian tablets to Hebrew commentaries, from Sufi poetry to Bedouin tales, the same details recur: an elongated body, green flame lingering near Mars, heralding change. This convergence across cultures suggests either coincidence or the memory of a real phenomenon repeated through time. Science, too, now entertains the idea that interstellar visitors may not be rare. With Oumuamua in 2017 and 3 Atlas today, astronomers realize our solar system may regularly be crossed by wanderers from other stars. Each passage would have been visible to ancient peoples, sometimes brilliantly so. If one such visitor passed near Mars centuries ago, it would have lit the desert skies, leaving prophets to interpret its meaning. Their records, clothed in poetry and religion, may be the only surviving testimony of earlier interstellar encounters. The prophets of the desert, then, were not simply mystics, dreaming in isolation. They were witnesses. Their visions of green torches, wandering lamps, and stranger stars may reflect real astronomical events, seen with clarity in skies unpolluted by modern light. They did not measure spectra or plot orbits. They interpreted, framing these visitors as omens, messengers, and tests. Their words echo across millennia, preparing us for what we now see with telescopes: the same green flame, the same wanderer by Mars, the same sense that change is near. Today, as 3 Atlas drifts through our system, we stand where they once stood, in awe, uncertain, seeking meaning. We have instruments, but we also carry their memory. The prophets of the desert remind us that the human response to the heavens is always the same: wonder, fear, and the conviction that the sky is never empty. When the green flame hovers near the red warrior, the world waits, knowing that history itself is about to turn. The Book of Signs. For centuries, humanity has sought to capture the mysteries of the heavens, not only in oral tradition, but also in sacred texts. These texts, scrolls, codices, illuminated manuscripts, did more than preserve prophecy. They organized it, turning fleeting visions into structured systems of meaning. One such tradition has been called the Book of Signs, not always a literal book, but a recurring motif across civilizations, a record that linked celestial appearances to great transitions in human history. In this symbolic book, unusual stars, comets, and interstellar visitors were not random lights, but entries in a cosmic ledger. Each sign was an omen, each omen a chapter, and each chapter a warning that the world was about to change. The earliest echoes of a book of signs can be found in Mesopotamia, where the Babylonians compiled the Enuma, Anu, and Lil, a massive collection of omens tied to celestial phenomena. Thousands of clay tablets detailed what might happen if a comet appeared in a certain constellation, or if Mars glowed brighter than usual. The Babylonians believed that every unusual light in the sky was a message from the gods, and they preserved these messages as part of a universal system. In these tablets, references appear to elongated flames or green torches crossing the heavens, images that sound eerily like interstellar visitors, such as 3 Atlas. To the scribes, these were entries in the divine book, signs that kings would fall, floods would come, or empires would rise. Centuries later, Jewish apocalyptic literature carried forward the same idea. Texts like the Book of Enoch and the Apocalypse of Baruch describe heavenly bodies leaving their appointed paths, burning with strange colors, and scattering sparks across the earth. These were not ordinary stars, but signs written into the cosmic script by God himself. The Book of Enoch even speaks of stars that transgress their order and are cast into fiery prisons, a haunting metaphor for interstellar objects that move unlike any other. For the prophets, these transgressing stars were not just anomalies. They were signals of divine judgment. They were part of the Book of Signs, a narrative of history written not in ink, but in flame. In the Christian tradition, the Book of Revelation became the definitive text of signs. It spoke of stars falling to Earth, of a great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea, of a star named Wormwood that made the waters bitter. Though cloaked in symbolic language, these visions align closely with descriptions of cometary or interstellar impacts. Medieval commentators debated their meaning, often linking them to torches or flames in the sky reported in their own time. A green flame, an elongated visitor, or a wandering star near Mars would have been instantly folded into this framework as an apocalyptic sign. To the faithful, such events were never meaningless. They were new pages in Revelation's unfolding story. Islamic tradition also preserved its own book of signs, known as Kitab al-Isharat. While the philosopher Avicenna ibn Sina used this title for a work on logic and metaphysics, other Islamic scholars used signs to describe celestial omens tied to the end times. The Quran speaks of stars falling, skies splitting, and lights appearing as signals of the Day of Judgment. Later Sufi mystics expanded these into elaborate commentaries, describing emerald torches and strange stars that would appear before the final purification. Again, the imagery aligns with the appearance of interstellar objects. For the mystics, these lights were reminders that the cosmic book was still being written, its signs unfolding across time. The Book of Signs was not limited to written scripture. In Mesoamerica, the Maya kept codices filled with astronomical tables. The Dresden Codex contains detailed predictions of eclipses and Venus cycles, but also illustrations of serpents of flame raining fragments upon the earth. Each event was tied to prophecy, a signal of droughts, floods, or political upheaval. Though the codices were nearly destroyed by Spanish conquest, what remains reveals a worldview where every strange light in the sky was an inscription in a cosmic ledger. To the Maya, the heavens were a book, and comets were the words of gods. In medieval Europe, astrological treatises often functioned as books of signs. The Liber de Signis Coeli and similar manuscripts cataloged comets, eclipses, and planetary alignments, interpreting them as signals of war, plague, or divine wrath. Chroniclers wrote of stars like torches and green flames in the firmament with meticulous detail, then tied them to earthly events. To them, history was not random, it was scripted in the heavens. Each unusual star was a punctuation mark in the divine sentence of time. The persistence of this idea suggests something profound. Humanity has always believed the sky is readable. When the ordinary pattern of stars was disrupted by a foreign visitor, people reached for their books of signs, whether clay tablets, codices, scrolls, or illuminated manuscripts, and found meaning. They may not have known the physics, but they knew the pattern. Visitors came rarely, but always with consequence. Modern science, surprisingly, does not wholly dismiss this. The impact of comets and asteroids has indeed shaped history. The Tunguska event leveled forests in Siberia. The Chicxulub impact wiped out the dinosaurs. More subtle encounters may have delivered water and organic molecules to Earth. In a sense, each impact was a sign, a turning point in planetary history. The ancients, though they lacked telescopes, understood this intuitively. Their book of signs was not superstition, it was an early recognition that celestial visitors mark thresholds between ages. This is where Three-Eye Atlas enters the story. Its emerald glow, exotic chemistry, and elongated body place it firmly in the category of anomalies the ancients would have recorded in their books of signs. If it had appeared in Babylonian skies, it would have been noted as a star of judgment. If it had been seen by Maya priests, it would have been painted as a serpent shedding fiery seeds. If it had appeared to medieval monks, it would have been written in margins as a torch of apocalypse. Today, we chart its orbit and spectrum, but symbolically, we are still adding it to our own book of signs, the modern chronicles of science and speculation. One of the most striking aspects of these traditions is the link between signs and transformation. Rarely did a prophet say, "This light means nothing." Always it meant upheaval, the fall of kings, the rise of empires, famine, renewal, rebirth. The Book of Signs was not neutral, it was a chronicle of change. This pattern holds today. When scientists speak of interstellar objects carrying organic molecules, they hint at transformation, the possibility that such visitors could spark life on barren worlds. Once again, the sign is tied to change, to thresholds between what was and what could be. The question then is whether humanity should still read the skies as a book. Some argue that science has replaced prophecy. Yet, when the James Webb Space Telescope reveals galaxies older than expected, or when interstellar objects appear with strange chemistry, we react with the same awe and speculation as our ancestors. We may not call them omens, but we treat them as signs, signals that our understanding of the cosmos is incomplete and that history is still being rewritten. The Book of Signs, in this sense, is eternal. It is not confined to ancient tablets or sacred texts. It is the ongoing record of humanity's encounter with the unexpected. Each comet, each interstellar body, each green flame in the night sky adds a line to the cosmic manuscript. The ancients wrote with myth and prophecy, we write with data and graphs, but the impulse is the same, to inscribe meaning, to recognize that when the sky changes, so too must we. As 3i Atlas drifts near Mars, fragmenting and glowing, we are reminded that the book is still open. The signs are still being written. Perhaps future generations will look back on this moment as one more entry, a time when a green torch from beyond crossed our skies, reminding us that the cosmos is not silent. The Book of Signs, ancient and modern, continues to unfold, page after page, a story written in stars. Voices from the Dreamtime. Far beneath the southern skies, in the vast landscapes of Australia, an ancient tradition endures. For tens of thousands of years, the Aboriginal peoples have carried their cosmology not in written books, but in songlines, stories, and sacred art. This vast oral tapestry is called the Dreamtime, a framework that explains creation, the movement of stars, and the continuity of life. Within these stories, the heavens are never silent. They are alive, filled with ancestral beings that traverse the sky. Among the most mysterious are accounts of cosmic wanderers, elongated glowing presences, often serpentine, that shed fragments as they moved. To modern ears, they sound remarkably like descriptions of strange comets, or even interstellar visitors such as 3i Atlas. In the Dreamtime, these voices were not just natural phenomena, but messages, woven into the eternal narrative of existence. One of the most powerful Dreamtime beings is the rainbow serpent, a colossal entity said to have shaped rivers, mountains, and stars. Often associated with rain and fertility, the rainbow serpent also appears in the sky as a cosmic figure. Rock art in Arnhem Land depicts serpents winding among stars, sometimes painted with green ochre pigments. Elders explained that the serpent's appearance in the sky was not constant. It came and went, bringing change. In some versions, it shed sparks or children that fell to the earth, igniting transformation in the land. To Western eyes, this may seem symbolic, but the imagery bears an uncanny resemblance to a luminous, fragmenting celestial body streaking across the heavens. Aboriginal sky knowledge is detailed and precise. Many groups could identify planets, track eclipses, and align ceremonies with lunar cycles. They knew Mars as a wandering star, often tied to fire, conflict, and passion. In Dreamtime narratives, when a glowing serpent or wandering flame appeared near Mars, it was interpreted as a sign of upheaval or renewal. The red planet was the stage, and the serpent was the messenger. The echoes of this story ripple through multiple Aboriginal nations, suggesting that such events were rare but powerful enough to embed themselves in collective memory. For example, the Yolngu people of northern Australia tell of Barnumbir, the morning star spirit associated with Venus, but also with wandering lights that cross the sky. Barnumbir was said to bring messages from beyond the earth, carrying knowledge across the void. In some tellings, she guided fiery serpents that visited the skies and left glowing fragments. Elders sang that these fragments were seeds not of plants, but of life itself, falling into rivers and soils to awaken new cycles. It is impossible not to hear in this myth an ancient intuition of panspermia, the modern idea that comets and interstellar bodies carry the building blocks of life across planets. Other Aboriginal traditions describe the sky as a living canvas where ancestral beings travel along fixed paths, but sometimes new wanderers appeared, breaking the rhythm. One Dreamtime story tells of a stone canoe that drifted slowly across the stars, glowing green and leaving sparks in its wake. The people feared it at first, but shamans declared it was a gift, a sign that the world was entering a new stage. They painted elongated forms on cave walls, dotted with smaller glowing circles, to preserve the memory. To them, the canoe was alive. To us, it resembles the passage of an interstellar visitor, fragmenting as it moved, its dust scattering across the night. The Dreamtime does not separate the physical from the spiritual. For Aboriginal peoples, stars are not distant suns, but ancestors, spirits, and voices. When a foreign star appeared, green, elongated, and luminous, it was not merely observed, it was listened to. The voices from the Dreamtime spoke through it, telling people to prepare for change. This is why these stories were passed down for thousands of years. They were not entertainment. They were survival codes, spiritual guidance, and memory of cosmic encounters too rare to ignore. Rock art supports these narratives. At sites like Murujuga and Kakadu, petroglyphs depict elongated forms with trails of dots, sometimes alongside depictions of Mars or other bright stars. Archaeologists often label them comet symbols, yet the specificity of detail, elongation, green pigments, association with fragments, suggests something beyond ordinary comets. They may be attempts to record unusual visitors like Three-Eye Atlas, preserved in stone long before telescopes could name them. In this way, Aboriginal art becomes a visual extension of the Book of Signs, an encoded memory of celestial events that shaped worldview and prophecy. What makes the Dreamtime unique is its continuity. While empires rose and fell elsewhere, Aboriginal cultures preserved their stories across tens of millennia. The voices of elders retelling the rainbow serpent, Barnum Burr, and the stone canoes may carry echoes of astronomical events now lost to written history. If interstellar objects passed through the skies in ancient times, glowing green and fragmenting near Mars, it is entirely possible they were seen by these peoples and woven into myth. The voices from the Dreamtime are, in this sense, voices of witness, keepers of memory older than any book. Science, too, now hears strange harmonies with these stories. When Three-Eye Atlas was observed, its green glow shocked astronomers. Its dust appeared to behave in unusual ways, clustering rather than dispersing, almost like seeds gathering together. These are the very motifs found in Dreamtime tales. Seeds from the sky, luminous fragments, serpents shedding sparks. While scientists explain them in terms of chemistry and physics, the resonance with ancient myth is undeniable. Both perspectives see the visitor as a bearer of transformation. Dreamtime prophecy was not always gentle. Some stories warn that when the serpent blazed green in the sky, it meant hardship. Famine, storms, or social upheaval often followed. This duality, life and death, creation and destruction, is the hallmark of the keeper of life archetype found worldwide. The voices from the Dreamtime carried the same warning. The visitor was both gift and trial. Its seeds could awaken life, but they could also test the people, forcing them to adapt. Even today, Aboriginal elders emphasize that the Dreamtime is not past, it is eternal. The stories are not relics, but living truths. When new celestial events occur, eclipses, comets, meteor showers, elders fold them into the continuum of Dreamtime. Were they to see Three-Eye Atlas glowing green near Mars, they would not treat it as alien. They would treat it as part of the ongoing dialogue between sky and earth, a continuation of the same voices that have spoken for 50,000 years. For us, the lesson is profound. Modern astronomy and ancient Dreamtime are not opposites, but complements. One speaks in spectra, data, and orbits. The other speaks in serpents, seeds, and voices. Both are ways of listening to the cosmos. Both tell us the same truth. The sky is alive, and when a foreign light appears, it matters. The voices from the Dreamtime remind us that interstellar visitors are not meaningless rocks. They are woven into the story of life itself. They awaken awe, fear, and transformation. They are messengers, carrying with them the possibility of new beginnings. As Three Atlas drifts near Mars, glowing green and scattering dust, we are not the first to wonder what it means. The Dreamtime already spoke of it long before telescopes. It told us, the serpent will return, the canoe will scatter seeds, the ancestors will whisper. And so, the voices still echo. Across deserts, rivers, and ancient caves, they tell us that the cosmos is not silent. It speaks in green flames, in elongated wanderers, in seeds of life falling through the void. To listen is to remember that we are part of a story far older than ourselves, a story where even the rarest interstellar visitor has a place in the eternal dreaming. The Martian Connection. Among all the prophecies, myths, and visions tied to interstellar wanderers, one theme emerges again and again: the red planet. Mars has long been the stage on which humanity projected both its fears and hopes, a world close enough to inspire imagination, yet distant enough to remain untouchable. In the ancient sky, its crimson light stood apart from the steady stars. To some, it was the bringer of war and judgment. To others, a beacon of transformation. And when strange visitors appeared in the heavens, elongated torches, green flames, serpent-like wanderers, they were often described as drawing close to Mars, hovering near it, or aligning with its glow. This recurring motif is what we can call the Martian connection, the persistent association between foreign celestial bodies and the red planet as the focal point of prophecy. In Mesopotamian records, Mars was known as Nergal, the god of war, pestilence, and the underworld. Clay tablets link unusual stellar events near Mars to upheaval in kingship and famine on Earth. One inscription describes a torch, long and green, that tarried by Nergal for many nights. The omen was grim. Cities would fall, rulers would be overthrown. While most entries in these omen tablets describe predictable eclipses or planetary alignments, this one stands out. Its imagery matches the appearance of a luminous, elongated body, something akin to Three-Eye Atlas, lingering near Mars. To the scribes, the connection was clear. The visitor and Mars together meant violence and change. In the Hebrew prophetic tradition, Mars was often a symbol of Edom, the ancient rival of Israel, tied to blood and judgment. Rabbinical commentaries on the stars sometimes mention foreign torches appearing near Edom's star, interpreted as signs of divine reckoning. The color red made Mars a natural symbol for bloodshed, but the sudden appearance of another glowing body beside it was considered extraordinary. These interpretations reveal a symbolic logic. Mars alone was dangerous, but Mars accompanied by a stranger meant an age-defining moment. The Greeks and Romans inherited these associations, calling Mars Ares or Mars, the god of war. Astrologers in the Hellenistic world recorded cometary events in relation to Mars with great seriousness. Pliny the Elder wrote of a long torch near Mars, burning with colors unlike the rest, and warned it foretold blood in the empire. Ancient astrologers mapped such apparitions carefully, believing that the fate of nations was written in where celestial visitors appeared. That so many of these reports place strange torches or flames in proximity to Mars is telling. Even in antiquity, humanity instinctively linked interstellar visitors with the red world. The Maya also emphasized Mars in their codices. The Dresden Codex, filled with celestial tables, devotes significant attention to the cycles of Venus and Mars. Mars was often tied to warfare and upheaval, and its conjunction with foreign lights was marked as the start of new cycles. One codex illustration shows a serpent of flame bending toward a red glyph. Scholars interpret as Mars. From its mouth fall smaller sparks drawn toward the red planet. Whether literal cometary observations or symbolic prophecy, the connection is clear. Wandering bodies were not random. They were drawn toward Mars as if by design. Why Mars? One explanation lies in visibility. Mars is often one of the brightest objects in the night sky, its red hue unlike any star or planet. Its periodic retrograde motion, when it appears to move backward against the stars, only deepened its aura of mystery. To ancients, it seemed restless, defiant, alive. When an unusual visitor appeared near it, the symbolism was amplified. The Red Warrior and the Foreign Messenger together created a story too powerful to ignore. The Norse sagas also allude to Mars in subtle ways. They did not name it as clearly as Mediterranean cultures did, but they spoke of a red wanderer associated with battle. In one saga, a fiery serpent is said to have danced by the red wanderer, and then the world shook with war. Again, the same pattern emerges, interstellar-like visitors tied directly to Mars, interpreted as signals of upheaval. In the Islamic Golden Age, astronomers carefully charted Mars, calling it Al-Miriq. Observatories in Baghdad and Samarkand produced detailed planetary records. Yet mystical commentaries describe events when a green torch lingered near Al-Miriq, interpreted as signs of plague or the fall of dynasties. Sufi poets took it further, describing these torches as messengers that tested humanity. The imagery, green flames, elongated shapes, proximity to Mars, resonates strongly with how we now describe Three-Eye Atlas. For them, the Martian connection was not coincidence, it was revelation. Modern science, with its precision, sheds new light on this ancient obsession. Interstellar visitors like Three-Eye Atlas often take paths that bring them near Mars. Orbital dynamics show that gravitational assists and interactions with planetary fields can bend their trajectories. Mars, being a neighbor to the asteroid belt, is naturally in the region where such bodies might pass. Thus, the ancients may have been observing a real pattern. strange visitors do often appear near Mars in the sky. What they interpreted as divine omen may, in fact, have been astronomical reality. But science also adds a layer of intrigue. Mars is one of the most promising candidates for extraterrestrial life. Evidence of ancient rivers, dried lake beds, and organic molecules suggests it once had conditions suitable for life. The possibility that interstellar visitors could deliver new organic material to Mars makes the Martian connection more than symbolic. It may be biological. If objects like 3I Atlas carry amino acids or prebiotic compounds, their fragments could literally seed Mars with the building blocks of life. Prophets said the visitor lingered near Mars to bring change. Perhaps, in a cosmic sense, they were right. This raises the haunting question: did ancient peoples intuit that Mars was special? Without telescopes, they could not know its geology, but through vision, prophecy, or sheer observation, they placed wandering bodies alongside it in their stories. To them, Earth was too familiar, too close. Mars, with its red fire, was the perfect canvas for cosmic drama. The Martian connection may have been humanity's first hint that Mars was destined to play a unique role in the story of life. The connection, even in the modern imagination. Science fiction has long tied Mars to alien visitors, colonization, and transformation. Stories of Martians, canals, and civilizations all reflect the same instinct. Mars is where the stranger meets the familiar. And now, with 3I Atlas glowing green as it passes near Mars, we see myth and science converge. The old prophecies spoke of torches by the red planet. Our telescopes now confirm that this is exactly what is happening. The Martian connection, then, is not only ancient prophecy but ongoing reality. From Mesopotamian scribes to Maya priests, from Hebrew prophets to Sufi poets, from Norse skalds to Aboriginal elders, the pattern persists. When a strange visitor enters the sky, it is drawn to Mars. The interpretations differ: war, famine, rebirth, seeding. But the motif is the same. Mars is the companion of the visitor, the stage upon which cosmic drama unfolds. Today, as scientists debate whether 3I Atlas could deliver organic material to Mars, we find ourselves echoing those ancient voices. They did not have spectroscopy, but they had intuition. They knew Mars was not just another star. They knew the visitors that lingered by it mattered, and they were right. The Martian connection reminds us that prophecy and science are not as far apart as they seem. Both recognize patterns, both seek meaning in the heavens. For thousands of years, humanity has looked to Mars as the place where the universe speaks. Now, with interstellar wanderers glowing green near its surface, we realize the connection is not only symbolic, it is real, written into the fabric of the cosmos. And perhaps as fragments of 3 Atlas fall or scatter across the Martian sky, we are witnessing the very process the prophets foretold, the moment when a stranger from beyond touches the red world, and history, once again, turns. Echoes of Oumuamua. In 2017, astronomers witnessed something that shook the foundations of planetary science. A long, tumbling object entered the solar system at extraordinary speed. It was the first confirmed visitor from another star, a mysterious interstellar body that came to be known as Oumuamua, Hawaiian for a messenger from afar arriving first. Its passage was brief, its mysteries profound. It was elongated like a spindle or shard, featureless, and unlike any comet or asteroid seen before. Some said it was merely an odd fragment of rock. Others speculated it was artificial, perhaps a probe sent across the void. Whatever its nature, it was gone before we could answer the questions it raised. Yet the memory of Oumuamua lingers, echoing in our understanding of 3 Atlas and the prophetic traditions that long ago spoke of messengers from the stars. The strangeness of Oumuamua began with its shape. Estimates suggested it was at least 10 times longer than it was wide, a cigar or needle tumbling silently through space. Most comets and asteroids are rough, irregular, but rarely so elongated. When it was first detected, astronomers thought it might brighten with a cometary tail. Yet it remained stubbornly bare, no trail of gas, no halo of dust. And still it behaved like a comet, subtly accelerating as if pushed by outgassing. No one could explain it fully. It was the perfect riddle. A visitor that refused to fit our categories, a stranger whose silence was deafening. Some scientists, like Avi Loeb of Harvard, suggested a radical possibility: that Oumuamua was not a rock at all, but a fragment of alien technology. Perhaps it was a light sail, propelled by starlight, drifting between systems. Perhaps it was debris from a shattered probe, or even a deliberate messenger. Most astronomers disagreed, but the speculation revealed something deeper. Humanity, upon seeing its first confirmed interstellar visitor, instinctively asked, was it alive? Was it a messenger? In that moment, the scientific community echoed what ancient prophets had always said, that when a foreign body appears in the sky, it is never meaningless. Oumuamua's echoes reach back into history. Prophetic traditions spoke of elongated torches, green flames, serpents in the sky. Oumuamua was not green, but its form and silence matched those archetypes. It was a torch without fire, a serpent without a tail, an object that defied the ordinary. If it had appeared to ancient stargazers, they would have written it into their books of signs, declaring it a herald of change. They would not have measured its albedo or velocity. They would have asked what message it carried. And in truth, modern science asked the same. Was this a random shard, or was it trying to tell us something about the galaxy beyond? Now comes 3 Atlas, glowing emerald, fragmenting as it nears Mars. Unlike Oumuamua, it reveals chemistry. Carbon chains, unusual isotopes, crystalline scaffolds. Where Oumuamua was silent, Atlas sings in strange spectra. Yet the two are companions in mystery, echoes of the same truth. Our solar system is not isolated. Visitors come from the stars, bearing forms and chemistries we do not expect. Each is a chapter in a story humanity is only beginning to read. The ancients would say we are living in the age of signs. The scientists would say we are expanding the boundaries of planetary science. Both are correct. The echoes of Oumuamua also reach forward into speculation about our place in the cosmos. If interstellar visitors are common, as many now believe, then Earth and Mars have likely been touched by them many times. Some may have seeded organic molecules. Some may have altered climates or sparked extinctions. If so, then the stories of the ancients, torches bringing famine, serpents seeding life, were not mere allegory. They were memories of real consequences. Oumuamua was the first we tracked with certainty, but it was not the first to pass. Countless others may have come unseen, shaping history in ways we have forgotten. Even in modern myth, Oumuamua has become a touchstone. Conspiracy theorists claim it was observed more closely than reported, that secret data revealed artificial origins. Science fiction writers imagine it as a probe scanning our system before vanishing. The very name, messenger, fuels this aura of purpose. And now, when we observe 3 Atlas, we cannot help but measure it against that shadow. Is it merely a rock, or is it another messenger? The echoes of Oumuamua haunt every observation, reminding us that the line between natural and artificial is still blurred. Prophecy, too, finds resonance here. The Book of Revelation speaks of a star falling from heaven called wormwood, poisoning waters. Medieval seers wrote of torches in the sky that lingered then vanished. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories spoke of stone canoes drifting silently across the stars. Each of these could describe Oumuamua, mute and strange, refusing to explain itself. They could just as easily describe Atlas, luminous and unsettling. The echoes cross millennia. The visitor comes, the world wonders, the meaning remains elusive. One haunting thought is this: perhaps the ancients saw visitors like Oumuamua before. If one past millennia ago, visible to the naked eye, its elongated silence would have been unforgettable. Shamans, monks, prophets would have declared it divine. Their descendants would record it in myth as a serpent, a torch, a messenger. In this sense, Oumuamua is not new, it is part of a cycle. Each time a visitor comes, humanity sees it, wonders, and folds it into story. 3 Atlas, glowing green, is simply the next chapter. The scientific pursuit of Oumuamua continues in theory. Some suggest it was a fragment of a larger body shredded near its home star. Others say it was a hydrogen iceberg evaporating invisibly. A recent idea proposes it was a shard of nitrogen ice, like a piece of Pluto from another system. None of these theories fully satisfy, but each is an attempt to explain the unexplainable. The ancients did the same in their way. They explained through prophecy, myth, and omen. We explain through models and equations, yet both are responses to the same shock. The sky is not fixed, it is penetrated by strangers. And so the echoes continue. Every time we watch 3i Atlas near Mars, we think of Oumuamua. Every time we speculate about its fragments seeding life, we recall the messenger that came before and left no trace. The two are paired in our imagination, twin heralds separated by a few years but bound by mystery. If Oumuamua was the scout, as some have suggested, then Atlas may be the follow-up, the one that carries more obvious signals: chemistry, fragments, seeds. The ancients would say the first was the warning, the second the fulfillment. Modern scientists might not disagree. What makes the echoes of Oumuamua so haunting is their silence. We cannot chase it, cannot analyze it further. It is gone, slipping back into the interstellar dark. Yet its absence shapes our present. We build instruments to catch the next one sooner. We refine our models. We prepare missions to intercept interstellar visitors. Oumuamua left behind no dust, no trail, only questions. But questions are powerful. They echo louder than answers, pushing us toward discovery. And perhaps that is the true legacy of Oumuamua. It reminded us that the universe is not a closed system. It opened our eyes to the reality that strangers pass through, unseen and unbidden. It awakened in us the same awe and fear that prophets felt when they spoke of torches, serpents, and flames. It reminded us that we, too, are still writing our book of signs, still adding new chapters to the story of humanity's relationship with the sky. Now, with 3i Atlas blazing green near Mars, we live in that echo. We look back at Oumuamua, forward at Atlas, and realize we are standing in a continuum of mystery stretching across millennia. The ancients recorded it in myth. We record it in data. But both traditions agree, when the stranger comes, the world is never the same. The echoes of Oumuamua still resound, not in sound but in silence, in the questions that press us, in the sense that the cosmos is alive with visitors whose messages we have only begun to understand. The final warning. Across centuries of prophecy, myth, and vision, a theme repeats with haunting consistency. The appearance of a strange wandering star is not only a marvel, but a warning. The ancients spoke of torches in the heavens, emerald flames, and serpents of light, not as passive spectacles, but as omens, a signal that the world stood at the edge of transformation. This idea, echoed from Mesopotamian tablets to Aboriginal Dreamtime chants, from Mayan codices to medieval chronicles, builds to a singular refrain: one day, the heavens will deliver the final warning. A sign so clear, so undeniable, that it cannot be mistaken. Some said it would mark the end of an age. Others said it would test humanity itself. Today, as 3i Atlas streaks near Mars with its emerald glow, fragmenting and scattering luminous dust, we cannot help but hear those echoes. Could this be the very omen the prophets foresaw? In Babylonian prophecy, celestial omens were cataloged with obsessive precision. A green torch lingering near Mars might signify the fall of a king. A comet in a certain constellation could mean drought, and an eclipse was always tied to political upheaval. Yet hidden in these clay tablets are more apocalyptic entries. One text warns of the star that comes not from here, a body that defies cycles, whose appearance is the end of the line. Scholars debate whether this referred to a mythic entity or a real astronomical event, but its language is stark. This visitor was not like others, it was final, a last omen before catastrophe. The Book of Revelation, too, carries this motif. Its vision of the star called Wormwood, burning like a lamp and poisoning waters, was understood as more than an isolated event. It was part of the unfolding of the end times. Medieval commentators often linked strange green torches or comets in their skies with wormwood, declaring them warnings of famine, plague, or divine judgment. The final warning, in their eyes, would be a celestial light that disrupted not only nature, but the very spiritual order. Such a light would not merely predict disaster, it would announce it. In Mayan cosmology, cyclical ages defined human existence. Each world ended in fire, flood, or transformation, and each ending was heralded by a serpent of light in the heavens. Their codices show flame serpents spitting sparks downward, often in proximity to Mars. Priests declared these as warnings that one age was closing and another about to begin. The final serpent, they said, would not only end an age, but determine whether humanity passed into renewal or into oblivion. To the Maya, the final warning was not destruction alone, but judgment, a cosmic test of survival and rebirth. Even in Islamic mystical traditions, the motif appears. Sufi writings describe the Alam al-Isharat, the world of signs, where strange stars and torches are messengers of divine truth. Some poets wrote of a green star that hovers near the red one, Mars, and when it departs, the old world departs with it. For them, the final warning was not random. It was revelation, a chance for humanity to awaken before the curtain fell. Indigenous traditions add another layer. In Hopi prophecy, the coming of the blue Kachina and the red Kachina signals purification. The blue Kachina, often described as a strange star-like being, dances in the sky before the final upheaval. In some tellings, it appears as a second sun, glowing with unusual color. Its arrival is the final warning, after which the world will pass through fire into renewal. Here again, we see the same imagery, a foreign light, strange in color, linked to Mars and to the end of an age. What is striking is the consistency of detail. The final warning is always a celestial visitor. It is not part of the regular heavens but an intruder, elongated, glowing green, scattering fragments. It is tied to Mars, the red planet, the cosmic symbol of conflict and change. And it is never neutral. It always brings upheaval, whether destruction, renewal, or both. Prophets in deserts, jungles, monasteries, and caves all reach for the same language: serpent, torch, lamp, emerald, flame. They all agreed it was the ultimate omen. Modern science interprets such events differently, yet even here, the final warning resonates. Astronomers acknowledge that interstellar objects like Three-Eye Atlas and Oumuamua may not be rare. Some may have seeded Earth with life. Others could pose threats if they fragment or collide with planets. The Tunguska event and Chicxulub impact remind us that celestial visitors have rewritten history before. A sufficiently large interstellar impact could, quite literally, be a final warning for civilization. In that sense, the ancients were not wrong to see these visitors as decisive turning points. The chemistry of Three-Eye Atlas deepens the mystery. Its glow is not ordinary. It radiates emerald, a hue tied to exotic molecules not commonly seen in solar comets. Its fragments appear to cluster instead of dispersing, behaving almost like programmed matter. To prophets, such anomalies would have been unmistakable, a visitor unlike any before, carrying signs in its very body. To scientists, it is a puzzle, but the resonance between ancient prophecy and modern data is chilling. A green flame near Mars, fragmenting unnaturally, carrying organics. If ever there was a candidate for the final warning, it is this. Yet what does final mean? To prophets, it meant an end to the old order. Sometimes that meant destruction, other times renewal. Perhaps the final warning is not about annihilation, but about awareness. A reminder that humanity is not isolated, that the cosmos is alive with visitors who can alter destiny. In this sense, the final warning could be an opportunity to prepare, to awaken, to realize that life itself may be seeded and tested by forces beyond our control. Consider the possibility that Earth's own life began this way. If comets and interstellar objects seeded our planet with organics billions of years ago, then each visitor was a kind of warning. Life spreads, life transforms, life is not confined. The ancients may have intuited this truth in their myths. They saw the torches not as mere rocks, but as keepers of destiny. The final warning, then, is the moment we remember what they always knew. We are part of a larger cosmic web. The idea of the final warning also speaks to psychology. Humanity fears endings, yet it also longs for renewal. Prophecy gives form to that tension. A green torch in the sky is terrifying, but it also excites. It means the world is not stagnant. Something vast is moving, reshaping destiny. The prophets gave voice to this duality. Their warnings were not only fear-mongering, they were preparation. They told people to look up, to remember that the heavens matter, that life is fragile, that change is inevitable. And so here we stand, watching Three-Eye Atlas glow emerald as it brushes past Mars. We measure its spectra, map its trajectory, and speculate about its chemistry. Yet in our hearts, we feel what the ancients felt: awe, unease, the sense that this is not random, that it is a sign. Whether of life spreading, of planetary change, or of our own awakening, it speaks to us as it spoke to them. Perhaps the final warning is not about destruction at all. Perhaps it is about attention, a reminder that when the heavens shift, so must we. That when a stranger from beyond crosses our skies, we are being asked to remember our place in the cosmos, not as rulers, but as participants. Not as isolated beings, but as threads in a larger fabric. The prophets may have called it judgment, we may call it discovery. Either way, it is the same. The visitor comes, and the world will never be the same again. The final warning, then, is not prophecy alone. It is history. It is science. It is the continuity of human wonder across millennia. From Babylonian scribes to Hopi elders, from Mayan priests to modern astronomers, the message is the same. When the green flame appears, take heed. The heavens are speaking. The question is, will we listen?